One catastrophic night nearly destroyed him before the world ever discovered what it almost lost. His grandfather had studied with John Field, and his father played piano, but it was his mother who placed Sergei's small hands on the keys at 4. Those hands, already unusually large, hinted at the reach that would define his sound. By 5, he was taking formal lessons and soon outpaced local teachers. Alexander Goer, his instructor at 9, introduced him to the music of Tchaikovsky and Chopin, but the real shift came when Alexander Salotti, his cousin, urged him toward Moscow, and the strict mentorship of Nikolai Zverev. Zverev's home was a training ground for prodigies, discipline, 8-hour practice days, and a roster of young talents that included Scriabin and Medtner. Rachmaninoff's technique sharpened under this regime. At 16, in 1889, he entered the Moscow Conservatory. His audition, a flawless Beethoven Pathétique, left the jury silent. There, he studied piano with Salotti, counterpoint with Sergei Taneyev, harmony with Anton Arensky, and technique with Nikolai Rubinstein. The curriculum was rigorous: scales, fugues, orchestration, and annual juries. Rachmaninoff thrived, performing Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, and new Russian works. Teachers and classmates alike marveled at his control and reach. By graduation, 5 master teachers had shaped him into a young artist ready for the world stage, as anticipation for his debut soared. March 28, 1897. The Imperial Mariinsky Theatre in St. Petersburg filled with expectation as Sergei Rachmaninoff's Symphony No. 1 prepared to meet the world. At just 23, Rachmaninoff was already whispered about as Russia's next great hope. But as the orchestra launched into the opening bars, something went wrong. Alexander Glazunov, the conductor, himself a respected composer, struggled to hold the ensemble together. Some later claimed he was unprepared, even distracted, but the truth remains tangled in rumor. What unfolded on stage was confusion, missed cues, a ragged ensemble, a sense of music fighting against itself. The critics did not hesitate. Novoye Vremya called the symphony a chaotic mass of sound, lacking any logical development. Vladimir Stasov, the most influential critic of the age, dismissed it as an incomprehensible jumble. Even friends and mentors like Rimsky-Korsakov admitted the performance exposed every flaw. Rachmaninoff, sitting in the audience, could not bear to stay until the end. He left the hall before the final movement, his hopes unraveling measure by measure. The backlash was immediate and merciless. Newspapers pounced, colleagues turned distant, and the promise of a brilliant debut collapsed overnight. For Rachmaninoff, the humiliation cut deep. The young composer withdrew from public life, haunted by the memory of that disastrous night. The world he had trained for now seemed to have vanished in a single evening. But Rachmaninoff's story was far from over. The darkness that followed would demand everything he had and set the stage for one of the greatest comebacks in music history. Spring 1900. In a quiet St. Petersburg apartment, Sergei Rachmaninoff sat across from Dr. Nikolai Dahl, a physician known not for medicine but for hypnosis. The composer, still haunted by the humiliating disaster of his first symphony, had lost all confidence. For 3 years he could not write. Each day Dahl guided him into a trance, repeating the same words: "You will write your concerto. You will work with great ease. The music will be excellent." Week after week, Rachmaninoff returned. Slowly, the fog of despair began to lift. His diary from May 1900 records the first glimmers of hope. Sleep returned. Melodies flickered at the edge of his mind. By autumn, he found himself at the piano, sketching new themes with a sense of freedom he had not felt since his youth. The transformation was not instant, but it was real. He poured his restored energy into a single work, the Piano Concerto No. 2 in C minor. The first sketches appeared in October. By December 1901, the score was complete. And on the night of the premiere, Rachmaninoff himself took the stage as soloist. The opening chords, dark, tolling, defiant, announced not only a new concerto, but the return of a composer who had nearly lost himself. The audience, swept up in the music's passion and grandeur, erupted in applause. Critics called it a triumph. The concerto's success changed everything. Rachmaninoff's creative voice, once silenced by doubt, now rang out stronger than ever. The man who had been broken by failure was reborn through music. Sergei Rachmaninoff's hands became the stuff of legend, almost mythic in their reach, and a source of awe for everyone who heard him play. When fully extended, his span measured close to 31 centimeters, nearly a foot from thumb to little finger. That is wider than most concert grand keyboards can accommodate, and far beyond what even the best pianists can hope to achieve. Rachmaninoff could easily cover a 12th on the keys, and in some of his own works he demanded even more. In the second piano concerto, there are passages where the right hand must stretch across 12 notes at once. In the third concerto, the opening chords require a left-hand reach that most pianists can only manage by rolling the notes, but Rachmaninoff played them as written, one clean, thunderous gesture. This was not just a physical advantage, it changed what was possible at the piano. His massive hands allowed him to voice inner melodies within thick chords, to sustain singing lines where others could only hint at them. The effect was unmistakable, a sound both orchestral and intimate, built on a foundation of power and control. Vladimir Ashkenazy, himself a giant of the keyboard, once said, "When I first saw the score of the third concerto, I realized only a hand like Rachmaninoff's could articulate those chords without breaking the line." For audiences and fellow musicians, it was a revelation. His technique seemed supernatural, but it was never about brute force. Instead, it was the way he let the music breathe, using that immense reach to create waves of sound that felt both grand and deeply personal. The world took notice. Rachmaninoff's hands did not just play the piano, they reshaped what the instrument could do, setting a new standard for virtuosity that pianists still chase to this day. November 1st, 1918. Sergei Rachmaninoff stood on the deck of the SS Bergens Fjord, watching the coast of Norway disappear into grey mist. He carried only a few suitcases and a single trunk of scores. Everything else, his home, his estate, even his beloved grand piano, was left behind in revolutionary Russia. 12 days later, the ship docked in New York. The world he stepped into was loud, foreign, and utterly uncertain. Exile was not a choice, but survival. The revolution had swept away the old Russia he loved. Friends vanished, fortunes dissolved, and the music he wrote for Russian halls now echoed in empty rooms. Rachmaninoff, once celebrated as a national treasure, became an émigré, an outsider in a new world. The loss was more than material. Letters from this period reveal a man grieving not just for his homeland, but for the life and identity he had spent decades building. The pain of separation pressed into every note he played. But even as he mourned, necessity demanded action. In America, his reputation meant little. He was 45, starting over as a stranger, forced to become what he had never wanted to be, a touring virtuoso, playing night after night simply to support his family. The journey from Russia to America was not just a physical crossing. It was the end of one life and the uncertain beginning of another. Night after night, Rachmaninoff stepped onto unfamiliar stages across America, each performance a lifeline for his family and a test of his artistry. During the 1924 to 1925 season alone, he played 22 concerts from coast to coast, filling halls in New York, Chicago, Boston, and Los Angeles. Audiences, many hearing his music for the first time, sat spellbound by the sheer force of his playing. But the concert stage was only part of his new life. Rachmaninoff recognized the power of recordings to preserve his artistry for a world he could no longer visit in person. He created 17 piano rolls, capturing the exact touch and timing of his hands on the keys, and he released 3 commercial discs that quickly became prized by collectors. These recordings, made for the Victor Talking Machine Company and later RCA Victor, brought his interpretations into homes around the globe. For many, it was the first time they could hear the composer himself perform works like the Prelude in C-sharp minor or the thunderous Second Concerto. Through these records and relentless touring, Rachmaninoff's reach grew far beyond the concert hall, ensuring his legacy would outlast even the world he left behind. Today, Rachmaninoff's music fills concert halls and streaming playlists worldwide. Proof that true genius endures beyond borders and eras. In a world hungry for beauty and honesty, his melodies still remind us that from struggle, something timeless can be born.